Audio.
A quick thanks before we start the show. Filmmaking Confidential, the book, is getting rave reviews from readers, filmmakers, film professors, and even people in creative fields other than filmmaking. I just want to say thank you to all of you who ordered it and for your support. If you haven't yet picked it up and you want to learn my filmmaking secrets, Filmmaking Confidential is for you. It's available wherever books are sold in most countries around the world. Order by visiting Audible or Amazon. To find out more, check out filmmakingconfidential.com and stevebalderson.com. Thank you. I'm Steve Balderson, and you're listening to the Filmmaking Confidential podcast. Each week, we meet with filmmakers, writers, actors, artists, and other notables. Many episodes include questions or commentary from other filmmakers listening to the conversation. Today's guest is the Enigma, an inspiring performer who is also completely tattooed from head to toe in blue puzzle pieces. He got his start as a member of the Jim Rose Circus Sideshow, performing around the world, touring with acts such as 9 Inch Nails, Marilyn Manson, Korn, and once opening for David Bowie. Rolling Stone magazine called the show an absolute must-see act. The Enigma has appeared in a number of TV shows, including The X-Files, where he played a sideshow character loosely based upon himself.
I saw him this morning down by the river. He was eating a fish. I could be mistaken. Maybe it was another bald-headed jigsaw puzzle tattooed naked guy I saw.
Is this man also a body manipulator?
Palisade Toys made a toy based on this character as part of their X-Files Pals action figure line. This character was also prominently featured on the X-Files pinball machine. He holds a Guinness World Record for his tattoos. And now, the Enigma.
Can I see that you do not have horns right now?
Correct.
When did you not have horns anymore?
A couple years ago. I had them for 22 years. I got the idea in 95. We were touring around with 9 Inch Nails.
When was the X-Files show?
95. Yeah, I don't know. We do stuff because it's interesting. And I mean, for me, my personal character is like, I don't know, if Stan Lee was Spider-Man, then he how would I make the character bigger and better, right? So then this is my character, so I'm always trying to figure out, well, how do I make him cooler, but
Well, that's actually very interesting, because the whole purpose today was to talk about your experiences acting in front of the camera, but then there's like multiple layers even above that and below that of acting in real life, and then all the different roles within real life, whether you're in front of the screen or not.
Yep. And my is stage work, theater, not so much the camera, so much as theater. So
I mean, this is when I told Mike Patton this, when we were getting ready to do Firecracker, I explained it by saying, because he was really nervous about actually being in front of the camera. And I said, Mike, it's exactly the same. It's the only difference is there's a thing there that's filming you, but it's actually easier than being on stage, because if you're on stage, you don't get a chance to redo it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when you're on film, if you screw up, you can do it again and no one ever knows.
Yep.
Except the people in the room.
Yeah, and when you lose a crowd, you can feel it. And it's hard to win them back, because you got to win them back by the time you hit that T-shirt sale at the end.
Right, exactly. Walk me through the timeline. Yeah.
Sure. Well, so Sideshow happened because I was in a magic club in grade school. So the Bothell Magic Club is a suburb of Seattle. And my brother was into it. And so, of course, I, followed along. In there, a gentleman came in, and he became like the president of the little club. And he kind of took me under his wing. This was in junior high. He was helping me out with close-up magic. And then I went to this guy, Dean Ueda. He had a bunch of stuff. Some magician died and left stuff all over the place. And so you go and look at books. And there was this little book called Thrilling Magic, and it told all the little impossible things you can do, like swallowing a sword, pounding spikes in your skull, eating fire, all this stuff. I was like, wow, here's real magic. Because when everyone believes one thing and you show them another, the truth appears as magic, I mean, swallowing a sword is just like impossible. Well, in that day and age, because there was no anything that you wanted that was cool or weird or strange. You had to research it. You had to study it. You had to find it. It wasn't just like a click of a button, on a phone. So all this stuff was really kind of died out and unheard of. Sideshow anyway. So then in junior high, there I was like trying to swallow a sword and stuff like that. And so then I was in a band, and I thought, well, I'll do Sideshow as like a halftime. And, I was playing keyboards, and that band was really short-lived. And then I ended up, meeting up with those characters from the Lollapalooza Sideshow. This was back in 91. And everybody was doing weird stuff. The amazing Mr. Lifto, putting a coat hanger through his tongue. That was really impressive to me. And, he had his pierced nipples and everything else. And that was an old, Sideshow performance by a guy that he would lift weights too. So he was just carrying on that tradition. The Torture King, he would, shove hat pins and meat skewers all through his body, his cheeks and everything. And he was doing other things as well. He was more in the traditional vein. And then Matt the Tube Crowley, a pharmacist, who thought that doing a gavage tube up his nose into his stomach and then attached to like a beer or an egg, and you see the yolk kind of go really bright yellow through the tube into his stomach. And he thought that was a cool bar stunt. But these characters evolved over the next, couple of years. And, then we switched casts because Torture King and Tube had enough of the other guy in the show. Anyway, and then so they left. But Lifto and myself, we were just young kids, and at the time, I guess, and we just didn't care. We were just on a ride, and we just didn't want a regular job, So we stuck it out. I stuck it out till like 98 after that spring tour. Then I wanted to do something new, because if the scenery doesn't change unless you're the lead dog, otherwise you just got your nose up the other dog's ass. So you have to, in order to learn or grow, you have to break away and do it yourself. It's the only way you can learn in any of the industries, really. It's just, you've got to do it yourself to find out what it's really like. I know that as an actor, you want to know more about production. You want to know more about sets. You want to know more about filming, lighting, and direction, everything. And the only way you get that experience, as you know, is by doing it.
Exactly.
So then I was doing shows on my own, and I had Cats and the Tiger Lady at the time. But yeah, it was early on, when I first met up with all these characters in 91, that I was like, well, how do I improve my act? How do I make it cooler? And so you kind of envision yourself on stage, and you think, you watch yourself kind of like an animated character doing these things, and you say, well, how would I make him look cooler? Well, what if he was a different color? How would I do that? Well, paint yourself. Now I'd be all gooey. The different lighting, they changed the setups and stuff. What if I tattooed my entire body? Wow, I'd pay to see that. So then it's just a small idea, but it's the amount of more force you put behind it that makes it a great one, right? Like Famous Amos chocolate cookies. So then it was just a matter of, I called up Spalding and Rogers, and, they have those ads all the time in the tattoo magazines back in the day, and said, how much ink do I need to order to cover the whole body? And they're like, we don't know. Call us when you find out. So, I ordered inks and stuff like that, but I couldn't really, I knew I needed someone else to help me out, because some places you can't reach, And so Cats and the Tiger Lady, who I met on Lollapalooza in 92, she was also interested in doing her entire body. And so we got together, and I gave her all the money for equipment. It was all the money I had. It was like $1,300. And everybody else in the troupe was like, oh, you're a fool. You're getting robbed. She's going to take your money and whatever. She was in Atlanta, and she came up to Seattle, and we had the month of January 93 off, and she did all the lines. It was a hard month. Puzzle pieces everywhere, on the toilet seat, on the bed sheets, on the walls, and we got through it. And at that time, tattoos above the neck line or past the wrists or ankles, those were just not done. And there's a number of reasons to not do those. First of all, tattoos in those areas, they don't take that well. It's not going to be great art. It's hard to heal. They see the sun and everything all the time. So then when those tattoos get really ugly, then you walk down the street and they go, hey, who put that junk on you? Well, this guy down the street. Well, I'm not going to be his customer. So by doing those spots, you lose customers, because it's really hard to get the ink, just to stay in those areas and to react always consistently well. So for me to do all of this totally untraditionally and just have one giant design was kind of like, I don't know, seeing Noah's Ark, especially as tattoo artists. This is like the Holy Grail. And so young a guy to do this with his body, what's wrong with this guy? He's insane. But they loved it. They loved the spirit of it. They loved the fact that I just went for it and didn't care. And just, I was just in it, and it was just a magical time, because nobody had ever done anything like that. But if you did do your research, you'd find some evidence of the great Omi, who was a guy who put like stylized spirals over a bunch of old work he had and became the zebra guy. And then there was a guy who put leopard spots all over his body up in the Isle of Skye in Scotland. So there's old guys that, did it, but they didn't really have the impact on the society and stuff. But being part of the Lollapalooza Sideshow, which at that point, Lollapalooza was an amazing thing, 92, and William Morris Agency had its eyes on it. And so it's really like should have been called the William Morris Agency Sideshow, because they're the ones that put us all around the world. And I became the most famous tattooed man in history because of that. Everybody else, followed suit. Of course, Ripley's and Guinness, and they posted all kinds of crazy stuff about me that wasn't even true. But, because, there was no way to call anybody. There was no cell phones or nothing. You couldn't verify. There wasn't even email back then, I remember I had a message phone number so I could check it on any phone, because, just traveling around. And I paid my dues, man. There wasn't any, only one person got, really paid for doing that show. And the rest of us followed along. And I remember we opened for Nine Inch Nails in Madison Square Garden, 2 sold out nights. And, I stayed in a squat in the freezing cold because I wanted to hang out downtown for a minute. But then, everybody else stayed in like some cheap old hotel in New Jersey because it was just cheap, but then I don't know. So we paid our dues and we grew in our performance levels. And I didn't even talk during those shows. I was just, the monster, growling and grunting and stuff. And that's, it was 95 that, of course, Darren Morgan wrote that script for the X-Files that featured myself. And it was Kim Manners directed it. He's gone now, but it was really amazing because it was a high production, and television is a real quick turnaround. Not like, the films like you're doing. Television's like, got to be done now, right now, So Kim would have like a set going and he'd say, okay, action. And then, okay, now set up this shot. And then you go to another set and go action. And then, okay, now set up this shot. And you go, so you had like 3 sets going all at once, It was crazy.
Walk me through that experience. Was that the first time you were in a show like on TV?
Yeah, that was did lots of talk shows and, every breakfast and, cereal show, those little, Carol and Marilyn and all that, just crazy stuff back then. Ricky Lake and all that stuff. But
and you're performing there also. Your character.
Yeah. Those shows are kind of cool because, you get to, but they're just so, they're really kind of tacky. And it's not like a script. It's like a reality TV show, they just film it. And if it's too much, they'll just cut it out. But with the X-Files, that was a real, like, here's a script, I didn't have any lines though, except the last one. So it wasn't a big deal on that, but they didn't want me to act. They just wanted me to kind of do the part as if it was just, I was just walking down the street. So there wasn't really like, cause I'm from the stage where it's, guys and dolls, big as life, but then television is all like, you just want oh, he moved his nose, or he winked his eye, and that's like action, So especially the deadpan way that X-Files is shot,
Right.
So it's really funny. But yeah, it was crazy. Have you ever had any like acting classes per se, or just performance?
Well, okay, I take that
experience back. All right. So actually, one summer, my mom enrolled me in an acting class. I was just a kid. I barely remember much of it. It was like, it was just a way to get, kids to do something during the summer, I guess.
Well, I asked about the acting thing because while I had seen X-Files, and I'm sure I saw clips of sideshow stuff from Lollapalooza. I'm sure I had to have. I don't remember specifically if I did, but there had to have been stuff on MTV and all this stuff. Well, first of all, I was just like, okay, this guy who's blue, but looks completely naturally as if this is how he came out.
Yeah.
Like I know it's been made. You have produced this. You have made this. You have created this. But when I see it on other people, when I see other people doing any kind of body modification that doesn't seem so true to them, it doesn't look like it fits them. But when I saw you on the screen, I thought, wow, this is an entity that feels totally like it has always been this way. And I don't know if when you made the decision and the fact that you made it with like a truth, it came from like a true core place that was like a realness that made it came out real, right?
Yeah.
A few years later, you show up in Wamego, Kansas, and we're going to make Firecracker.
Yeah.
And I see you act on screen with an Oscar nominee who also won 4 Golden Globes.
Yes.
One of the Go-Go's, Mike Patton, like all of this, and all of them have different styles. What I found so interesting was the ease and how natural, like how did you know? I mean, I know you're super smart and you are incredibly creative. Oh, come on, give me a break. Because you also scored a lot of the music in that movie, which we'll get to also in a minute. I was amazed at how good of an actor you were, and how it was so natural and it fit the scene. I mean, you were technically playing a character with your same name, right? But it was still a character. Like it wasn't just you walking around doing stuff. Had you been approached to do anything like that post X-Files, or was that sort of like the first time?
That was it. I mean, X-Files was just a lot of people that say, oh, I'm not going to get a tattoo because it'll interfere with my acting career. It's like, well, I got a tattoo on my whole body, and that got me an acting career. But, I don't know. I mean, when you're doing a show night after night after night, you get really tight. I was doing, 5 shows a week. It'd be 2 on and then a day, and then 3 on and then a day. And that's when you're so tight. And when you have, once again, William Morris Agency backing it to where you're doing these giant shows all the time and your guarantees are so high, the fans, massive amounts of fans every night, to where your ego just goes out the window, and you're standing there talking to people that make a lot of money doing their art. I may be standing next to Trent Reznor, but he's a musician and I'm a musician. So I don't see it, such a big rift between us in that we're both musicians, you see? So there's not, it's like, I'm saying like he's more successful because what? Because of popular opinion and all this other stuff. But because, he was just an underground artist too at one point, we all start somewhere. As far as people go, I don't really find a difference in, we're all the same, it's just different. We just have different ideas that stimulate us and make us do crazy stuff, part anxiety, part neurosis, part schizophrenia. I mean, we do stuff. And that's a cool thing, because when you think of it that way, if you just pick up a guitar, you're just as good as Jimi Hendrix, because you're a musician, and you count yourself among them. And acting is like, you've got to have, and this is also for any stage, for anything you do performance-wise, you have to have adrenaline at your fingertips. And if I go to like a bunch of people and they're all like getting ready to do a show or something like that, I go, grab onto your hate, because, love, you sit there and, you're comfortable in your blankets and you're in love. But as soon as like you hear the garbage man go by and, wait a minute, did he pick up the trash, or did he just pass by my, you know what? And then you get upset, and now all of a sudden you're going to do something. Well, that adrenaline, that drive, that's what makes stuff happen. It's, so I have tons of love in my heart for my hate, because that's what pushes things. That's what makes stuff. I'm not going to put up with this. I'm going to do something, I'm going to write a story. I'm going to create something. I'm going to, and that it's that adrenaline. So before you go on stage, you take a hammer and you smash your thumb, and now you go on stage because you got adrenaline right there. Especially when you're in a performance troupe where you really hate the person that's like directing, because he'll say something or she'll say something that just pisses you off. Like you just can't even, because you think you're an artist and your ego just got shot. Man, you're going to go on that stage. You're going to prove them, man. You're going to do it, because why? Just because of the rage, And I think being an oversensitive kid, and it just makes the anxiety level pushes you either to clam up and sit in the corner and don't talk to anybody, or you become some performer because you're enraged and you're out there and you're going to do stuff and you're going to entertain, or you're going to, it's the anxiety, I think, and is just, there's fight and flight, So for me, the more crowd and the more energy I'm getting, it's just the more anxiety, and the more I'll overact and I'll say crazy stuff and I'll just go and do whatever, because, there's not a lot of filter here, because I figure, I don't know, who cares, I'm punk rock, it's like, it's right between magic and punk rock,
Performer and all-around entertainer, the Enigma. Another great guest, familiar with working under pressure, is Amanda Dibert.
The ISIS attacks that happened in Paris, and President Hollande was supposed to be coming from the soccer match that he was at when they struck to our set. We're also at the base of the Eiffel Tower. We have people from the Obama administration with us. We have the mayors of Paris, and we have former Vice President Gore. We have dignitaries, we have celebrities, and we're concerned that we might be a target.
You can get a link to my full interview with Amanda Dibert at filmmakingconfidential.com, or by subscribing for free to this podcast. Coming up, we'll discuss working opposite screen legend Karen Black and rock star Mike Patton, plus a stint in New Orleans with Trent Reznor. That's next. I'm Steve Balderson, and this is the Filmmaking Confidential podcast. I'm back with The Enigma.
We'll take you to the costume trailer. Harriet's got a bus ticket, and we've collected a little money. You'll be safe here for now. They will be looking for you. Just wait for the crowds. Wait for twilight.
Thank you, Enigma.
That was a clip from my film Firecracker, featuring the Enigma opposite screen legend Karen Black and rock star Mike Patton.
Did you have a good time shooting Firecracker?
Yes. Yeah, Katzen and I were going through some rough periods there. But at the same time, that it was funny. Okay, so one of the most beautiful experiences was, of course, Karen Black, because she had that amazing, old world flair, that kind of just the way she'll move and present herself in some sort of a European gypsy, you know, from old, you know, like a I don't know, just elegance, but yet, you know, kind of, I don't know, like a palm reader at a carnival at the same time, you know?
Yes.
And it just like, you're like, wow, just it's strange how her presence alone was just, it's just magical completely. And then Mike Patton, I'm sure I kept saying, hey man, can I tour with you? Hey, can I tour with you? I was probably like a puppy dog on his ankle there about that. But yeah, he's very much, you know, people act just like their characters, you know, they act just like they are as a human, like a dog acts like a dog and a snake acts like a snake. And it's just their nature, you know, and humans are very much like that too. If you have a broken leg, well, in your mind, you also have a broken leg. So you act as you have a broken leg in your mind as well as physically. You understand what I'm saying? So if you're a big guy, you'll act like a big guy if your mind is and your body are one and the same, which they are. They're not separate, you know. So it's just kind of interesting. Anyway, I'm sorry, it's a little philosophical and a little bit off it, but they act so much in their character, even just offset. That's who they are, you know. And it's method acting, I guess. But then when it comes to once that camera is on, they really become the epitome of who they are. Like it's almost like truth is, even though it's a facade, it's really truthful about who they are on the inside. I felt. I don't know. Did you get that too?
Yes, totally. Anything that we're creating and doing is coming from ourselves.
Oh yeah.
And or through ourselves. So even if we're taking it out of the majestic sphere of the universe, it's moving through our bodies.
Yeah.
And we're the ones translating that into this world.
Yeah, for sure.
So if we're the translator, we're going to incorporate a lot of our own language in the translation.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Well, let's talk about music for a minute.
Okay.
Do I have this understood that Trent Reznor gave you a bunch of stuff at one point? Like he was no longer going to make music anymore, and he was going to. I don't remember if I have the whole story.
Okay, so here I am. He's like, oh yeah, I want to produce your music, you know, and do an album, you know, and so I was like, well, I better move down to New Orleans. That's where his studio is, so that I could just be right there, and if he has time for me, I can just, you know, ride my little bicycle over there and we can do stuff or whatever. And I'd be familiar with the place. So it wouldn't be like I had to fly all the way over there just to say hi and then fly all the way back, you know. So, Katzen wanted to move down there anyway. So we moved down to New Orleans and unfortunately he got exceptionally busy, you know, opening for David Bowie and stuff like that. So all I did was, if I went there, which I think I went there maybe 3 times or something like that, and you just see him go from one room to the next, you know, really quickly, and you just wave at you and then he's gone. It was a waste of time to just sit there at his studio to think, oh, I'll get to talk to this guy. It was better to just, you know, just do whatever I wanted to do and do creative stuff, get more tattoos, whatever, work on music myself. He had something called a K2000, which is a keyboard that had like orchestral ROM in it and whatever. And I wanted to get that. And he's like, oh, I can get you a discount at I think it's Nadine's over there in LA. He's like, just call me back. So I wait and I call him back and, you know, whatever and this and that. And finally he's like, you know what? Here, just take my studio board here. And so he gave me a rack mount, you know, K2000, and then he also gave me a DX7 to control it with. Like here he is walking the DX7 out to my van and you know, I was living in New Orleans, which at the time, I mean, it still is kind of, you know, a rough place, but before all, you know, hurricane and all that stuff, it was even rougher. And all the time I was afraid my gear would just get stolen out of whatever, you know, beat up little house I was living in. So I like, you know, I was dang lucky to have nobody mess with any of my stuff. Of course, I was also completely tattooed, and a lot of people didn't, you know, that there's a little bit of voodoo there. So if you had like, you know, I tied a chicken's foot with 7 knots and put that on my door, that was theft deterrent. And because
again,
you know,
right. I have forgotten at this point. I have forgotten that you are tattooed from head to toe because I'm just listening to the story and I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. I imagine there weren't all that many people coming to attack you.
Yeah. No, at one point I was like trying to get a place to live in the 9th Ward, which is completely black, and or was, you know, it's like, and those houses aren't, they're made completely out of caulk. Anyway, and it was an Asian lady who was on the phone. I said, yeah, I got rent. I'll come down. Oh, okay, yes, please come down right now. So I came down there to give her the money on the place, and she took one look at me and said, no, I don't want the cops here. And I'm like, what?
Did you release something?
I mean, well, you mean this album I just happened to make just now? Okay. Yes. Yeah, you can get this. If you want to plug, here it is. I mean, it's not to say that I don't have the comic books. This is number 4 of the comic. And then, I mean, I don't know if I have my own line of inks now. So if you wanted to pick, and then, of course, everybody knows The Mask, you know, okay, wait. This is what we do as artists, right? We got, okay, yes. Well, I just happen to have it sitting here planned out. Anyway.
Here's a little bit of the Firecracker soundtrack, composed by the Enigma.
Seeing your picture, I always wondered how you slept or how it felt when you hit, you know, one of those horns.
Yeah.
When they were in your head.
Yes.
Did it hurt?
Yes. A lot, because the skin is very thin there. So that's one of the reasons why I had the horns taken out, is because they were kind of a liability. You know, just like they might come out when they decided to, and I might be in a tour schedule that's a little bit rough. So then I didn't want to like have to deal with that. And I was a little bit too nice, and they took them back.
What, the horns? No.
You got to earn them, you know? They don't just give them to anybody.
Were you ever told a piece of advice that you were like, aha, and you carried with you even through today?
You know, sacrifice your body for your art. I mean, yeah, art. Yeah, it's just like artists they have to make stuff. You could lock them in a prison cell. They'll take blood and paint the walls because they don't have a choice. If you're an artist, then you're doing stuff. And if you're not doing stuff, then you're not really being an artist, are you? You're just being a couch potato or whatever. Like it's easy to just watch movies or play video games, but that's never going to satisfy an artist. They're going to be like, darn it, I need to do something. I need to make something happen. You know, my mom was always about, what are you doing now? What are you doing now? And what are you doing? It's that whole thing about men have an empty box where they can just sit in front of the TV and they go, what are you doing? And you're like, nothing. And they just can't handle it because their mind is in all spaghetti and you're a man. So you go step by step by step, you know, real simple, basic. So it's like, so yeah, having my mom in my brain all the time going, what are you doing now? What are you doing now? What are you doing? You know, oh geez, you just can't erase your mother out of your brain. You know, it's just I don't know. So yeah, if you're just always asking yourself, what are you doing now? What are you doing now? And not just that, but what are you doing for this project? Or what are you doing for that project? Specifically, how am I making my tattoo shop better today? What am I going to do? What kind of art thing can I put in the shop that's better or make people interested in it? Or it's all about the product. And if the product is you, then you got to improve yourself. And if it's the product is, you know, and it being a show owner, you're painting the banners, you're driving the car, you're preparing for war, you know? So that I live in a war battleground, you know, I don't know. It's not all, it's not all ribbons and candies, you know?
No, of course. But any business person, entrepreneur who is also then an artist totally knows what you mean.
Yeah.
Well, I am so thankful that we were
What
able
about
to
you,
have
Steve?
this. Me?
Yeah. What was the line that changed your life?
There were two. And Joel Schumacher, the director, told them to me. One of them was never take no for an answer.
Yeah, it's good.
Which I never have. The other one was you can do everything.
Yeah.
Just not all at the same time.
Yeah. No, it's true. You know, I've been doing blue puzzle pieces since '93 and watching everybody do their techniques and stuff. And I never actually did anything but blue puzzle pieces. And now that I have a shop, it's like, oh, hey, you got to do this tattoo. I've never done that tattoo before. I've never done anything like that before. But you know what? I'm going to do it because if you don't, then you die. So it's survival. So I've tattooed this stuff. I tell them, hey, this is the first time I've ever done this, but I've seen billions of people do it all my whole life, their last 30 years. So let's do this. And it turns out great because you got to believe in yourself. You know, you got to believe you can do it, and then you can do it. It's confidence is the first rule in tattooing. If you don't believe that line is there, that line is not there. You stretch the skin and you believe that because you can't see the line. It's a puddle of ink. You just got to know and believe where those needles are and make it happen. So you're working in the dark, and life is like that. You're just working in the unknown, but you just got to believe that you know, you got to believe that you can do it, and because you can. There's so much negativity in the world, and there's so much, you know, darkness, but like you just got to say, I'm going to do this. I'm just going to do it. I have to. And if I can't and I die, then so what? Then you die because, well, everybody dies. So what, you know?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. You know,
I do.
I should make it in less words, but you know, you got the idea.
Yes. It was beautiful. The Enigma. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Performer and all-around entertainer, The Enigma. You can see Firecracker by going to vimeo.com/ondemand/firecracker. Tune in next time for more Filmmaking Confidential. It is totally free to subscribe, and when you subscribe, you'll get upcoming new episodes automatically, and you'll have free access to all our past shows. The Filmmaking Confidential podcast is a production of Dakanga Audio and produced by myself and Ella Spencer. Our theme music is composed by Kevin Robles. For more of the Filmmaking Confidential podcast, head over to filmmakingconfidential.com. If you have a question about filmmaking you'd like answered on the podcast, send me an email using the contact form on the website. To learn more of my filmmaking secrets, be sure to pick up a copy of the book, Filmmaking Confidential, available on Audible, paperback, and ebook, wherever books are sold. I'm Steve Balderson. Thanks for listening and spreading the word. Until next time, keep making, keep doing, keep going.